Raw is in the books, Cody finally fought back, and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are best friends again. Here are the top moments from this week's WWE Raw and my reaction to them. I want to start with the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn reunion that opened the show. Less Cody Rhodes in this segment is a great thing, and I'm really glad to see it. It is wonderful to let Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn stand alone, but they weren't alone. They were in a huge crowd of people, all of whom were chomping at the bit to support these two men who have earned it, who've absolutely deserved it, and who deserve this spot. They will be competing with the Usos for both sets of tag team championships at WrestleMania. This was made official by Jimmy refusing the match and then Jay demanding the match. The actual chemistry between all four of these men continues to be incredibly impressive. So that is one of my top 10 for this one. Don't worry, I'm not doing them specifically in order, but the last one is still very much number one. Second up, I want to talk about backstage segment when Roman Reigns was there with the entire bloodline and we had Jimmy and Jay in mutinous mood. It is only very recently that Jimmy Uso has shown a distrust of Roman, similar to what he showed when he first appeared, or at least returned, when Jay was already under the thumb. Jey Uso has been mutinous for a while. He did walk away at the Royal Rumble after all, and he has now come back to protect his brother. But if his brother is also feeling mutinous, you've got to believe that Roman Reigns is in a very delicate position right now, and this is something they would refer to later. The bloodline is crumbling in front of Roman's eyes. Paul Heyman, the only reliable one right now, especially with what happened later in the night. But Jimmy and Jay, despite being the heels in this feud with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, clearly have a lot more story to tell. And I do feel this is the perfect time to really be building Jey Uso as a main eventer potential again, because I still feel that there is money in Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. The question then leaves, what is going to happen with Jimmy? Third up, bit of a strange title, but the hand size of Omos. We've been building to Omos versus Brock Lesnar, and it's not exactly winning over viewers. They really dug in on the viewers a little bit on commentary. I can't say I was the biggest fan of this, but as I'm talking 10 big moments, top 10 moments, let's jump into it. They really pushed the fact that Omos's hands are big, and apparently this is the selling point for the match. What sort of selling point is this? They're going to do a weigh-in next week, but it reminds me of the Braun Strowman, Bobby Lashley weightlifting, was it? Arm wrestling, was it? This is a nonsense feud. If we get a good match out of it, I'd be excited, but I just can't see Omos taking the suplexes for Brock, and I can't see Brock selling very well for Omos. I don't think this is going to be a great match. The feud's been lackluster at best. They stand in a ring across from each other. Omos says, "Look how big my hand is," and that's kind of all we've got going. It reminds me of the size of head of Prince Albert. We didn't really clarify which head they were talking about, but it was his head. Fourth, screw Logan Paul. And now the WWE agrees with us. The fans have been booing Logan Paul consistently pretty much since the second he walked into the company, but we've also been at least a little bit impressed with his overall product. He is taking to wrestling like a fish to water. A good fish though, not one of those fish that are actually capable of drowning. Do not Google it. Or Google it. You don't want to see it. Or Google it. Logan Paul had a live version of Impulsive, which was horrendous in all the right ways. Logan Paul played down the crowd, really laid into the town. It was cheap heat at its finest. Also, I've got to say, really clever use of the what chant for Logan Paul. He played his cadence out perfectly. Later in the night, there's someone else who did not do so well with the what chant, but Logan Paul controlled that crowd. Really helped give Seth Rollins a boost as he is now the face of this feud, and really shows that the WWE are being very clear now throughout this show who was a good guy, who was a bad guy, with one notable exception. But Logan Paul clearly the bad guy. Seth Rollins, the institution as it were, the franchise player, is the guy we're supposed to be cheering for. Next up we have Judgment Day, and I've got to say the actual big plus for me was Damian Priest's facial hair. Yeah, so Dominic won pretty conclusively, pretty effectively, particularly in the way he did so, throwing his opponent down to the mat and then hitting a frog splash to his back. It was as close to a clean win as you're going to get, even though Johnny Gargano is carrying an injury that he will carry into NXT as well, and will likely be the reason he loses to Grayson Waller. But for me, the build of this was a Judgment Day in general, particularly when you consider that the Judgment Day were very separate for the first time in a long time on this week's episode of Raw. Finn Balor's appearance was extremely limited in that it didn't really feature at all, and Rhea Ripley stood alone for the first time in a long time. Dominic was accompanied by Damian Priest, who they will be building towards the Puerto Rico Backlash pay-per-view, so we'll be seeing more of him to come. But while Dominic did stand out, he mostly stood out for the promo afterwards, making it clear where they were heading. The entire Mysterio family is going to be there on SmackDown, so you know Dominic will be as well. Also, as regards the Judgment Day, we had a promo backstage from Edge, but it wasn't just Edge, it was Dark Edge, it was cheesy Edge, calling out Dark Finn Balor, who hopefully is not so cheesy Dark Finn Balor. The idea, of course, is to try and push the fact that the Hell in a Cell is a monstrous feud maker and a monstrous feud ender. Edge has some recent experience in there with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins having the most experience because he also wrestled Cody Rhodes and Bray Wyatt in there. One of those matches was not like the other. Seth Rollins was able to help Edge to a fantastic match that both men really shined in. Hopefully Edge will be able to do the same for Finn Balor. There is obviously the Edge, Finn Balor and Seth Rollins connection. Finn Balor and Seth had a magnificent bromance that continues apace. We will see if we see a Demon King versus a Brood Edge, as has been rumoured. Next up is the Rhea Ripley segment, and this unfortunately was not to the best that it could be for several reasons. Firstly, the crowd are really trying to get behind Rhea Ripley, a mommy chant right from the off, but Rhea Ripley continues to be too respectful of Charlotte Flair. It's a real shame because personally, I believe Rhea Ripley stood out much more because of a lack of Charlotte Flair here. That said, she was not wrestling the ideal opponent, and the moment was kind of seized from her by a number of people. Bayley versus Rhea Ripley was intentionally put together with the idea that Bayley would sell hard for Rhea Ripley. Bayley is a very well accomplished seller and really makes people look absolutely fantastic. However, Rhea Ripley, while being made to look tough, also got an assist from Becky Lynch, from Lita, from Trish Stratus, which essentially rendered it moot. I know that they were trying to do two storylines at once here, roll them together and build towards WrestleMania in that way, but in many ways Rhea Ripley was overshadowed. Her promo, unfortunately, she lost the crowd when they started to chant what. She responded to it, but did not change the cadence of her voice, leaving massive gaps open for people to chant what over the top of it. You may have heard several opportunities for you at home to chant what. Hopefully you fill the comments with that, because even in comments, a what chant is not the worst thing in the world. I want to highlight a certain match for my 8th point, that being Gable versus Ricochet, easily the best match of the night, and we did have some good ones. Gargano versus Dominic Mysterio, I should say, for example, was a good match. Bianca Belair and Asuka did well later on, but Gable versus Ricochet was definitely the match of the night. There was a high pace to it, which you'd expect from these men, a real high level of technical talent, and a lot of flair in their moves as well. Gable actually showing more flair than he typically does, which really helped Ricochet to bring out the best in himself as well. I really enjoyed this match and I just wanted to highlight it. Not unhappy with the finish. I know they're building towards a bit of a nothing match at WrestleMania, but I still enjoyed the match itself nonetheless. The tag team match, which ended up being Chelsea Green and Piper Niven rather than Chelsea Green and Carmella versus Bianca Belair and Asuka, was short-lived, not too exciting, but the fans were clearly happy to see Bianca Belair as well. The real highlight here for me was, as I mentioned earlier, they're making it very clear who you should be cheering and who you should be booing, and they needed that for a while. Asuka has been missing that level of importance that is given when you are either a face or a heel. She attacked Bianca Belair from behind after the match this time around. She's not firmly 100% heel, but she has an element of wild card about her, and that essentially means cheer or boo, whatever you do, she's going to start annoying you. It's a little bit anti-hero. I do believe we'll see a formal heel turn at WrestleMania. I've already reported previously that Asuka has been listed as a heel internally since her return at the Royal Rumble. Finally, our number 10, our number 1 when it comes to the best moment of Raw last night, is Roman Reigns once again demolishing Cody Rhodes on the mic. But finally, Cody Rhodes fought back. Roman Reigns ripped into Cody Rhodes for the Stardust character, gimmick, whatever you want to call it. He ripped into Cody Rhodes for the whole concept of AEW, and he did so in a way that made the fans think, oh, he's not wrong. Thankfully, Cody was finally able to fight back by referring to what Sami Zayn's been up to, breaking apart the bloodline. That was what Cody was able to lean on because of his use in the Sami Zayn Kevin Owens storyline quite recently. Solo Sikoa managed to shine, and if you saw Spoiler Warning last night live, you will be fully aware of why Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa had this particular moment between them, as I did report last night, 2 hours before Raw started. Raw for me was a very good show, very enjoyable, quite diverse range of people on it, good wrestling quality, but we are actually really kicking into gear now for the build to WrestleMania. It's been a long time coming, it's been a long time overdue, and hopefully WrestleMania will deliver as we are hoping.